Here we are in a 2015 Porsche Cayenne diesel. It has 158,000 miles on it. The customer is complaining that the car is making a groaning noise. And in a moment, I'll shut up so you can hear the noise on and off throttle, starting now. Not sure if you can hear that through the camera, but every single time I input throttle and let go, you can hear a groaning noise. We'll be fixing that later today when I replace this one with a freshly rebuilt front differential, all new bearings. We'll put in new fluid, and after 500 miles, we'll replace the fluid. Here we are in the shop, and we're going to start by lifting the vehicle up and taking 2 front wheels off. This won't be a super in-depth video of me doing the whole process, but I'll definitely highlight some tips and tricks and other things that will help the process go a little bit smoother and quicker. With the 2 front wheels off, what I'll do first is remove the axles on both sides. You'll need a M12 triple square. It helps to have a wobble extension so you can get in there at an angle. So I'll bust these off with a impact gun, 1 by 1 on both sides. The next order of business for me is to remove the drive shaft, or the prop shaft, that comes off the front diff and goes to the transfer case. In order to do that, you need to support the transfer case with a screw jack. Remove the transfer case support by unbolting these bolts over here, the exhaust mount here, the 2 bolts over here. Also need to unplug this little module here. So we'll go ahead and do that. On the back side of the mount, you'll also need to remove these 2 16mm bolts. So we took off the transfer case support. For more access, you have to remove this under tray bracket. There's a 10mm here on the driver's side and another one on the passenger side. Take that out, and then we can pry the prop shaft out. I'll show you how to do that right after this. The front prop shaft is held in with a C-clip, and in order to pop this out of the front differential, you just gotta get a pry bar and wedge it behind that lip right there, and it should pop right out with a little pressure. For the back side, it's pretty much the same. You're going to get behind this lip right here, apply a little pressure, and it'll pop right out. You'll want to pull this back first and lower it out of the way before you pop this side out, so you can wedge it out. Like I said previously, you'll want to slide this side out first, see how it's off of that, and then you can pull this end back. So this was a little bit tougher to get out, so I stuck a really big pry bar right here against this little meaty section here and gave it a good hit with a mallet on the pry bar, and it popped right off. So I'll be taking this one out and we'll move on to the next step. All right, with the prop shaft out, you'll want to reconnect the transfer case support so we can move on to dropping the subframe. So the next step is to lower the subframe. There's 4 bolts that hold it up. There's one there, 2 in the back, 2 in the front. But before you do that, I like to loosen the steering rack. Undo this bolt and this bolt. There's nuts behind it. And then you'll also want to undo the steering column. There's this little E-Torx right there. I believe it's an E10. Let me double check. Yep, it's a E10 reverse torque. I need to take this off. Yep, need extension and probably a wobble bit. And then after you take that bolt out, you'll want to pry the steering shaft off. We'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll move on to the next step. I forgot to mention that the two bolts for the steering rack are 18 millimeters, guys. Took those out. Next step, I also forgot, you'll have to undo the sway bar links in the front so there's no tension when you drop the subframe. You can see right here I have the subframe supported by these two jacks here. You'll want to undo both sway bar links. That just relieves tension on the subframe. Then after that, with the front sway bars disconnected, I've moved on to removing the 4 subframe bolts. You can see here, there's one there, and then 2 in the back, 1 on each side. After this, I'm going to remove all the bolts for the transfer case. I mean, the differential, I'm sorry. Not the transfer case, the differential, which is what's bad. There's 1 bolt there. There's 1 on the driver's side, over here. And then 1 where the prop shaft was. So remove all those, and then the front diff will be loose. And then from there, we'll drop down the subframe and then wrestle this thing out. There's also a electro connector on the power steering that needs to be removed before you drop the subframe down. Again, this is very important, or else you'll stretch or break that wire. Luckily, I remembered. There's also a power steering return line that's clipped down onto the subframe. Gotta pop it off at this junction here, and another one right here before lowering the subframe. So the subframe is dropped down, the power steering rack is loosened. You're gonna have to lift up the differential here to be able to pull out the other side of the power steering rack. What I noticed on this one, it's weird because I have a 2015 diesel as well, and it doesn't have this vibration dampener on the differential. I noticed that this one does, but I'm thinking I'm gonna take it off so there's a little bit more clearance to wiggle this thing out. We're gonna pull the differential out this way. You're gonna have to wiggle it around and manipulate it like a Tetris piece to get it out. So here's a good tip if you're working alone. If you're gonna try to wrestle this out, what I do is I take a pry bar underneath the differential, lift it up, and then stick the bolt back underneath it just to help it sit above the mount when you try to wrestle it out. Otherwise, it'll just get stuck in there and be a huge pain in the ass. I'll do that for wherever I can, actually. I'll do it on this side too. And there she is pulled out. So it was a little bit jammed in there. What I had to do was lift up the axle ends and kind of move it out of the way to gain some clearance, and then I shifted the differential towards the driver's side, and I was able to swing it out and pull it out slowly. It's not too heavy. It's about 55, 60 pounds, definitely manageable by one person. This one was making some terrible noises. Feels super loose too. You can almost tell that it's bad by how easily it spins. But we'll rebuild the next one, this one, and install it in the next car. Here is the rebuilt one. It has all new bearings in it, ready to go back in. It's pretty much reverse order. You're gonna have to play Tetris with it and pretty much wedge it back up in there and swing the long portion to the driver's side. Luckily, we have these bolts in here still that will prevent it from dropping into its support, making it difficult to move. You'll have to play around with the axles too to get them lined up correctly. So I'll go ahead and do that off camera, and we'll move on to the next step. So as you can see, I have the differential back up in there. I'm starting to raise the subframe back up. Here's a helpful tip: don't bolt anything back up yet. Not the differential, not the steering rack. The first time I did this, I struggled really badly. I couldn't get the steering shaft back on this end right here. I couldn't figure out why, and after like an hour and a half, I unbolted the steering rack, connected this first to the steering rack, and then raised the subframe up and final bolted everything back into place. And that's pretty much what solved my problem. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and see how it goes. Okay, so off camera, I started reassembling everything. I finally have the front prop shaft back in. I'm going to put this end in first, and then with a rubber mallet, I just smack it until you hear it click in. And then you can raise this side in and do the same. But I'll do it with 2 hands instead of 1 off camera. We're at the home stretch, and last step pretty much is to fill front differential. It's an 8mm Allen. What I do is I use a open-ended socket, not socket, wrench. Put it up in here, and then you can tighten it. That's the fill. My recommendation is to fill it, drive it 500 miles, and then replace it. And then 20,000 mile intervals. I'm thinking I'm going to do it once a year. Okay, ladies and gents, it's the home stretch. My last and final tip, and it's pretty crucial, is to feed these bolts in by hand, thread them in by hand one by one, rotate, thread them in, make sure you get a couple threads engagement, and then snug them down. It's an extreme angle, and the first time I did it, I had the cage break on me and resulted in me getting a new axle. So take this tip for what it's worth and thread them in by hand first. Alright guys, we're back in the Porsche Cayenne on a road test. Just installed a new front diff. You can just listen real quickly. You can hear that it's buttery smooth now. Just keep in mind this car does have all-terrain tires, so it makes a little bit of humming noises, but take a listen. Completely smooth again. Interesting thing, I was just Googling what the Porsche recommended service interval was for the Porsche Cayenne front diff, and it says 160,000 miles or every 16 years. That's pretty ridiculous to me, considering you know, the fluid capacity on the front diff is it's actually less than 1 quart. You got to think it probably goes through a lot of friction and heat, and you know, with very seldom oil changes. It's not, you know, it's not shocking to me that these go bad. I've done maybe 6 or 7 of these now, and it seems like every vehicle that I work on has between 130 and 150,000 miles. So something tells me in the near future a lot of these things are going to be going bad. I went on YouTube and looked around for videos on how to DIY the front differential, and there's pretty much nothing available. So I decided to put this video together. Apologize that it's snippets of me doing the process, but I really didn't have the right equipment. Would have liked a GoPro mounted on my head to go over the entire process, but at least I covered some of the most important aspects of the installation. So hopefully this helped everybody. if you have any questions, just leave a comment in the comment section, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks for watching.